Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Cultivating Healthy and Vibrant Workplaces, the podcast. So today we are joined by two very special people, Ruvi Makuni and Christina Della, Rocca, both of whom are graduates of our certification programs and also featured in our book. In our discussion today, we will be exploring the role of a workplace wellness concierge and opportunities and benefits for wellness professionals and organizations who avail of their programs and services. But before we begin, I want to take this opportunity to thank our listeners for supporting our podcast, and a big thanks to those who've purchased our book, Cultivating Healthy and Vibrant Workplaces. So by way of introduction, Ruvi Makuni is a global workplace wellness specialist and certified executive wellness coach from our 4 certification programs, and she's also a Stress Master Associate. As a workplace wellness specialist and concierge, she is passionate about supporting the well-being of organizations and empowering employees so they can thrive in their careers without sacrificing their health. To that end, she facilitates holistic and multidimensional wellness programs and initiatives in the workplace, both on-site and virtually, with a focus on stress mastery. Now, Christina Della Rocca is a workplace wellness specialist and a certified executive wellness coach, also from our 4 certification programs, and a Stress Master Associate. As a multidisciplined strategic wellness specialist and workplace wellness concierge with over 25 years experience in the wellness industry, she has worked in many areas of the health and fitness industry via an integrated approach with numerous organizations and thousands of clients. Her vast experience enables her to quickly see the global perspective, assess each organization's and client's needs, and develop and implement an overall strategy for success. So hello, Ruvi and Christina, welcome. How are you both doing?
Hello, Lisa. Doing well. Thank you. Thank you for
Great.
having us.
Yes, myself as well. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So before we begin our discussion on the role of workplace wellness concierges, and in keeping it real, as I like to say in this podcast, what are some daily wellness rituals that you practice, or maybe, some non-negotiables for yourself that help you to stay well? So Christina, let's begin with you.
All right. So I'm a real wellness nut. So I have lots of, and I really believe in the power of ritual. So I'm a big planner the night before. I like to take, a little time to sort of, look at what I'm going to be doing the next day. And so I have a plan from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed, but I do remain flexible and kind to myself within. I start the day off with some stretches, 2 to 3 cups of water, and definitely some exercise. So I really try to do it first thing in the morning. That's my best, my favorite. It just starts the day off really well. And if I can't, I'll do it later in the day. But so those are really sort of key things for me.
Nice. You're getting me inspired already.
Yeah.
And Ruvi, how about yourself?
Yes, I'm actually not sure where I heard this concept of sandwiching your day. In that my morning and evening, that is my non-negotiable routine days simply for myself. So in the morning, I work out. I meditate then, and if I can, I'll squeeze in a walk before the day starts. And then at night, that's definitely my wind down routine, which includes, whether it's journaling or meditating again. And I found that drastically improved my sleep, particularly in 2020. So incorporating that wind down routine.
Yeah. So just quickly tell me a little bit of when you get up in the morning. What can I ask? What time you get up? I know you're an early riser, much earlier than I am.
I am up at, between 3:30 to
Oh my
4:30.
Lord.
Yeah,
Bless you.
Believe it or not, I am one of those people that thrives quite well.
I'm a morning person, but that's like 7 o'clock in the morning on the computer. So what time do you?
My bedtime is a little earlier,
Okay. So let's get started now into the topic at hand.
All right.
As I mentioned today, I'd like for us to define and discuss what a workplace wellness concierge is and, the organizations and roles they might serve. And for those who have our book, and Christina, maybe you can just hold up our book there. I know you have
just
it.
got my copy.
Yay!
Super excited. Yeah.
Yeah, just show them how big it is.
Look
Just
how big. It's going to
yeah.
be such an amazing tool for everybody, like for me as a,
And it has lots of graphs and charts and text, and your profile is in there and Ruvi's, and it's lots of white space for putting notes. Everything design wise was very intentional. Let me just speak to the workplace wellness concierge concept. And, the concierge concept, I first got inspired to use that term several years ago when one of our graduates was actually hired by a mid-sized organization to come in a couple days a week and provide, workplace wellness coordination and delivery. She would deliver some programs, but she'd also bring some people in. And that's what I love about the concierge concept, because as I mentioned, you both, through our 4 certifications and all your other, you have multiple certifications between you. You can bring so much to an organization just within your own skill set and training. But let's just say, and you both have a physical background, so you can bring that element. But let's just say someone in our program is a nutritionist and does not have the physical training, and an organization would like to have that level of service in addition to what you can bring as a nutritionist or a workplace wellness expert, around culture building or what have you. But the beauty of the concierge and going through our programs and being in our concierge network is you can refer out. And many people and of our graduates have done that. Ruvi, you just quickly, you might want to speak to you and Pam, a graduate of our program, did that during COVID, right? You offered virtual programs. Do you want to just speak to that for a second or two?
Yes, and that is a really great point, being able to lean on each other's specialties, and not go too far. And we've all grown to know each other a lot, through this network of ours. And during COVID, Pam and I actually teamed up. I put together a 30-day work from home program because,
Awesome.
everyone was working
Wonderful.
from home. And one of the challenges that a lot of people were having was being more sedentary because, that commute had gone essentially. And so each week had a different focus. And I asked Pam to come in and talk about, how to set up a home office that's not that won't impact your physical health, since she's an ergonomist. So she was able to help us set up an office, because I'm sure you remember images where people were working on the couch, and we had a discussion earlier on about how over time that can really cause probably back issues and what have you. So Pam was able to come talk to us about how to set up a proper home office, even standing desk wise and posture and things like that, as well as kids as well, because kids were homeschooling. And so she was able to speak to that. So it was really fun just to coordinate and support each other during such a challenging time.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so before we go too much further, thank you for that. I just want to read a definition, and what I'm reading here actually is provided in an appendix in our book. So as I've defined it, a workplace wellness, or we'll just shorten it by say a wellness concierge, and how I've framed it, I've called it the wellness concierge advantage. So our Workplace Wellness Center of Excellence concierges are multi-certified providers of cost-effective, client-centric workplace wellness solutions, with access to a vast network of concierges, again, graduates of our programs. They are well positioned to support the varied wellness and culture building needs of small to mid-sized organizations. In particular, however, as we're going to talk about, both of you have served organizations that would be identified as, large organizations or enterprises, right? So it's not exclusively to small to mid-sized, but really when the idea was conceived and how we positioned it, those who maybe, for example, as in the case I just referred to with my client, a graduate years ago, this organization brought her in, I think 2 or 3 days a week and contracted her under a contract for a year. Now, the contracts can vary. They can be a 4-month, 6-month, or a 12-month or longer. and between the organization and the concierge. And again, it just gives them a real cost-effective way, because they may not have the resources or the need to bring in someone full-time as a coordinator. If they can, great. Or it may be an opportunity to test you out, and then they decide they want to bring you in, right? If that's the case. So, a few of the services, programs and services that a concierge can provide an organization is such as the facilitation of organizational wellness audits and employee wellness assessments, formation and coordination of a workplace wellness committee, creation of inclusive, responsive workplace wellness charter, development of strategic workplace wellness goals and objectives, the design and facilitation of holistic wellness programs and offerings, the coordination of wellness program promotions and communications and evaluations, the development and management of, say, a wellness champion program or a wellness buddy peer coaching program, or maybe even help set up employee resource groups. They can help facilitate employee wellness circles, which we explain further and detail how to do them in the book. The delivery of executive programs, executive wellness coaching programs, and you are both, as I mentioned, certified executive wellness coaches, and we'll talk about that. And, the facilitation of wellness workshops, retreats, campaigns, or maybe our focus on healthy eating, our mindful eating program, and also stress mastery programs and assessments, because you both indicated you are stress mastery associates and you came to be such through involvement in our program, as we have a partnership with Stress Master International. And so, as you know, you became Stress Master Associates and got their tools and assessments through our program. So that's just a broad stroke overview of, how we define a workplace wellness concierge. So now I'd like to, of course, hear from both of you. How do you define it, or how do you represent and position and promote yourself as a workplace wellness concierge to organizations? So, Christina, may I start with you?
For years now, yes, I employ people mostly on contract to go into organizations to kind of, deliver the services that we offer. And I know Ruvi does the same, and as well in your practice, you do the same, or in your business. Basically, we're bringing in a broad range of programs, services, to meet with the objectives and goals that an organization might have. And because we have this wealth of people, we can't, we're not all specialized in every aspect. For instance, some of us may be more into stress mastery. Some of us may be more into teaching fitness classes. And so there's so many really different avenues that come to play.
That's great. Very well said, Christina. And, in reflecting on the services, programs and services you have offered, and we'll talk a little bit more about the, composition of organizations you've worked with. Do you ever have them, well, first off, do they understand workplace wellness, or do you have to educate them on what workplace wellness is in your role as a concierge or a workplace wellness specialist, if you will?
So there's definitely an aspect of education that comes into play. So when I start working with an organization, I really have to, oftentimes a company will call and they'll be like, oh, we want to start offering a fitness class, or, oh, we want to offer some lunch and learns or workshops to the employees. And I always try to really take that educational piece and take them a step back and say, well, what is it exactly that you're looking for? And I think it's super important to really do a needs assessment. And in my practice, I kind of insist upon it, because I can bring in a fitness program tomorrow easy. I hire a couple of instructors, we figure out what time works. And, by Monday, you're off to the races. But, and that may be great for a period of time. It's exciting, it's new. But if we don't really take a step back and take a strategic look at what is going on in your organization, what are the pain points, what are the goals, why do you want to bring in a wellness program? And then, and so I really do think that that's important. So, and that does require, I think, educating the organization on what it is. And also they're going to now invest resources, right? Time and money, space. And so how are we going to meet the objectives, and how's that going to be, valuable? And so what are they going to need to do in addition to myself bringing in the people and bringing in whatever the programs are to meet the needs of the organization, but also the employees.
Yeah, very nice. And it reminds me of the Discovery Consult guide that you get in our programs, where we will go through all that and give you, for, again, people coming into our programs, this is one of the tools of many that you get in working with organizations as a consultant, if you will, especially in that early discovery stage too. And so we give you the sort of questions, a nice flow chart of questions to ask in that discovery process, because you want to make sure that their needs are well identified and met, of course, through the deliverables of what you contract, right? And Ruvi, how about yourself? How do you promote, and again, as I asked Christina, do you find yourself needing to educate employers as to what workplace wellness is, and especially maybe now a workplace wellness concierge role, or do you take a different approach?
Yes, well, completely agree with everything Christina said. And to add to that, I've definitely had different experiences. I recall earlier on when I started, workplace wellness, I remember I was in discussions with an HR team for an organization, and they had felt that wellness programs simply don't work. They had invested a lot of time and resources into wellness programs, and they weren't at a stage to add on at that point. So I actually offered to do what Christina alluded to earlier, a needs assessment, to find out, well, where exactly is, just to see, is it that the employees are not. Oh, and I should add, they didn't believe that the wellness programs were working because they had been seeing consistent low engagement in their team, from their team.
And can I just stop you there? Excuse me. To your understanding, to the best of what you know, why do you think, was it because did they have an internal workplace wellness program, or did they just bring in, contracted individuals and they was low engagement? What was your understanding, or did you have any understanding of why their engagement was low?
Well, I had an inkling that it was most likely the offerings were not meeting the needs of the employees, which is why I recommended doing a needs assessment. And when I did it, and I presented them with the report, it wasn't that the employees were not interested in wellness initiatives. It was just that the offerings didn't meet the needs of the employees. And so that was an interesting dialogue with the team, because they had been offering on-site fitness classes, which had been doing well for some time. But the team at that moment in time wanted more, stress management and nutrition workshops and things like that. And even there were more organizational cultural issues that they were more concerned with, rather than the fitness. So in that regard, it did, open up conversations about, creating a wellness committee and that sort of thing, to increase communication and dialogue, and actually have the team members, work with a consultant such as Christina and myself and people from our network to actually help develop a program for them, by them, so that they're engaged in it.
So did you get the contract?
So yeah, it was a 3-month contract. And
Nice.
So I did intermittent workshops, and they weren't at a stage to implement a wellness committee. But that was really a great example and lesson for me, because as I mentioned, was earlier on in my career, and I realized then the importance of starting off. Whether you have a wellness program or not, I think it's still important to always check in with the team.
Absolutely.
And as you know, creating a wellness committee, I think is absolutely crucial, at least having some representatives from the company that are champions of the program.
Yeah. And that's the beauty about positioning yourself under the auspices in the context of a workplace wellness concierge, because you're going in with the big picture, and that's what you're trying to achieve with them right at the outset, right from the get-go. And you're not just going in doing one-offs. Like, this could change, but as it stands now, and Ruvi, you and I discussed this, our workplace wellness concierges will be going in with sort of a starting price point. And I won't say what that is, but it will not be like a couple $100 workshop. They'll be going in because truthfully, the sales cycle time can take a while, right, with organizations. And if you want to go in and just do a one-off workshop, that's great. but I wouldn't necessarily call yourself a workplace wellness concierge. I call yourself a wellness workshop facilitator or something to that sort. So a wellness concierge is much different and much more, all encompassing to make sure that you're going to have an impact. And the only way you can have an impact is to really go in and do the necessary work to create that impact. Because again, have you gone in and done more workshops and added, as a Band-Aid offering, you will have probably still been offering potentially things that were not meeting their needs. But by doing that assessment, as you said, then you can go in and really hone in on what they're looking for.
One of the benefits of using a wellness concierge is, we talked a bit about companies that already have an idea of what they want to put in place, or maybe have a program in place already. But I've also found that what we offer is a great benefit to companies that are starting out and have, either don't have the bandwidth in-house to create a program, or don't know where to start. So that's where we can come in and offer support from the beginning.
Yeah, very nice. And as I like to say, you do the heavy lifting, and you and I just actually presented to an organization for a potential contract that we may facilitate together if we get the contract. And that's another beauty, right, about people coming into our programs. For example, I'll just share another example of a concierge concept, if you will. During the pandemic, we were approached by a hospital in Ohio to facilitate an executive wellness coaching program to 8 of their team members. So we did a series of presentations, and the formal proposal. It took 6 months to land the contract, but it was a really great contract. And I brought in 2 of our graduates who I felt were really skilled, and they were executive coaches, wellness coaches from our certifications. And between the 3 of us, we met the needs. And that's a beauty. There's no way I could have taken on that contract myself. It was just too massive. It would have meant me coaching 8 people. As it was, I coached 4 of the 8, and each of them had a couple people each that they were responsible for coaching. And so, that's the beauty about a concierge, is that working together. And even like Ruvi, you and I coming up with the presentation for this contract we proposed to organization last week that we proposed to. You were catching me, and I've been in this business for a long while, as yourself, but there's things that we tag teamed off each other and really synergistically came up with some incredible ideas, right? From the pricing to whatever. And that's, again, the beauty about working. You don't have to work independently. And we both commented how nice it was to have someone to work with, right?
And quite frankly, more productive and faster, because sometimes, we get into our...
or you second guess yourself, right?
Second guess.
And Christina, do you find that, I'll just defer to you now on what we're talking about. You mentioned you bring in associates. So do you, tag team with them and bounce ideas off of and co-create ideas with some people that you work with in your network?
Yes, absolutely. Every organization that we work with is different. It's unique. It has a different size. The scope of the program that we may be offering is different. And so, like you said, with you and Ruvi, or you and the other colleagues that you worked with, would be impossible to serve everybody with the level of for lack of a better word, perfection, but the level of standard that you want to bring in, right? And so you really want to, sit down, co-create. There's different ideas. People have different areas of expertise and different biases. So yes, absolutely.
And so while you're on the mic there, Christina, I know during the pandemic, and I know this because actually we profiled it in your profile right. In the book, an organization talked about how appreciative they were of you being able to convert really quickly to online offerings during the pandemic so that they didn't misstep, no pun intended, right? And you with your fitness. So can you speak to that and that experience and how that came about and what benefit it brought, to you as a concierge, but to the organization specifically?
Yeah, so that really changed the face of my business in a kind of a big way, actually. COVID, I was on a plane heading home, and I was like, oh, what's happening here? And are we not going into the company anymore? I go, what's going on? And this was in March, mid-March. And one of the organizations said, no, we need you to keep coming. And I was like, okay, are you sure? Because I think that I don't think that that's going to be happening. Anyway, of course, a day or two later, it was all done. And so they were quite, that particular organization was quite alarmed. Everybody else was like, okay, we'll take a month off. It's all right. So I sat down and for a week or two and, kind of put my thoughts together. And I said, well, you know what, let's just offer it online. So I kind of came up with the idea because I was out running and I just stopped one day and on my Facebook page, started speaking, right? So everybody's home, we're kind of locked down, but it's really important to keep up with your healthy habits, all those non-negotiables that you had before to leading a healthy life. And maybe you want to even upgrade them a little bit while you're at home. Maybe you have more time. And so that kind of gave me the idea, well, why can't we do the classes online? Why can't we do the coaching programs online? Certainly we can do the consulting and all of the different facets of the programming that we offered in the company. So it started off kind of small and simple with the instructors teaching classes live. And I was doing a weekly group coaching call, again, on Zoom, right? I had to figure out how all that technology worked. And everybody was really happy in that organization as well as the others because, well, now they had access to their instructor and she was there or he was there. And so they got to interact with him. They also got to see the other colleagues, right? So now they weren't seeing each other in the gym or in the room that, they were doing the classes, but they were seeing each other online. And so I think that particular organization was very, very happy because she says we were just able to kind of continue working out and continue interacting. And it really just made a beautiful space in their day.
Yeah. And so you, again, just to add, and you can quickly speak to this,
sure.
and I'll defer back to Ruvi for her input on this. You created an online portal, I believe, and put some, your offerings on the online. And was that, again, during the COVID period or?
That is correct. So when everybody was like sitting on their couch catching up on Netflix, no, not me. I was working.
And, well, can I just say then, before I forget, the beauty about that, and I really want to highlight and stress this, for the benefit of those who may be considering becoming a workplace wellness concierge and maybe through our programs or otherwise, but then also to the organizations that, we're in a virtual world now and there's no getting away from that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's actually such a benefit and blessing. And I love what Christina did. And, she mentioned something really key about people getting excited about seeing each other, virtually and connecting with each other online during that time, because one of the challenges was loneliness or just, losing that community. So I love the way you pivoted right away and created that online.
And Ruvi, talk about the world as your oyster. How about you just share about this wonderful contract you got in Belize? Can you speak to that? Well, we profile the whole contract basically in our book. So if you have the book, certainly check it out. But Cole's Notes version. Tell us about that experience and how you even came to get, as much as you're comfortable in sharing, right? How you got the contract.
Sure, and it's definitely highlighted in detail in your book. And the short version is one of my clients. Actually, she was on. I'm a personal trainer as well, so she was one of my personal training clients. And I remembered her telling me that she had a resort in Belize, and that her and her husband really cared about their health and their well-being. And I just had this idea and I just sent her this document saying, oh, if you're ever interested in like a day workshop, I had that on my vision board some years back. That wouldn't it be nice to do some sort of retreat? And so when she mentioned that, I thought, oh, okay, I'll just I didn't think it would go far. But anyway, long story short, it ended up working out. And initially I went there for a week and I did boot camp classes and workshops.
Ruvi, you're located in the U.S., right?
Yes.
In the Maryland area, or is it what area?
Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia. And then Christina, you're in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. And the reason I mentioned that is because in Ruvi, you're talking about getting a contract for a week, and it was even longer than that, in a resort in Belize. So I just want to bring to mind the fact that, these possibilities, not only doing virtual work, but actually being brought to a remote location. You're in the US, being brought to Belize to do a wellness week, but then that actually ended up being a longer contract. So can you just further explain that contract then?
Yeah, so that initial visit was really an introduction for myself to the team. I remember I landed there a few days earlier just to get acclimated to the culture. I visited the local stores, the village areas, because I obviously wanted to speak, according to what's available to them, and to immerse myself in the culture. So I knew exactly how to guide and support them. And so that week was really an introduction of myself to them. And I got to, one of the things that I did do was sit in the lobby area, and whenever the team members or the staff had a moment, they could come sit with me, and I was able to chat with them just to find out what are their challenges, struggles, what do they need help with. And so that really gave me a deeper understanding, and of course it created a connection with the staff as well.
Did you pivot your offerings at all based on those casual one-on-one chats with the employees when you learned some new things about their challenges or their wellness needs?
Yeah, especially when it comes to, obviously, dietary needs are very different, and also the food sources and things like that were very different, especially living here in the US. And so I wanted to be mindful of what's available and things like that. And so I really actually more so spoke about cooking styles versus, and there were also financial challenges in some areas as well. And so I was very mindful about that.
And they brought you back for a second wellness week at another point. Was that correct?
Yes, so virtually we ended up doing creating a wellness committee, and then so during that it was the development of the wellness committee and planning for the next season, and that included, the 5K, 5K race, but in addition they were also doing some other the company itself, and the HR or the general manager rather, she's a huge supporter of wellness initiatives. So it was just a wonderful combined.
What I loved about that is because you bridged and you maintained and still facilitated wellness offerings, helped set up a wellness committee in between the two on-sites. And I just love that. Now, talk about a hybrid model, right? That was just beautiful. That was so awesome. And maybe give inspiration to potentially, organizations listening to this podcast, or those who are workplace wellness specialists or concierges. And that's awesome. And so aside from what we've talked about, are there any, and I'll go back to you now, Christina, are there any other roles that you facilitate or programs and services as a workplace wellness concierge, just to really help our listeners fully understand the possibilities and opportunities as a concierge, but also to organizations, right?
So, yeah, I mean, when we come in as a concierge, we can just really play the role that the organization's going to need and want. And so it's really important to marry those two things, the wants and the needs. Workplace wellness program success comes from, again, we talked about that, the creation of that wellness vision and really putting a plan together, and whether it's going to be short term or long term, how are we going to get from A to B and then to D and then to F and et cetera, right? We really need to look at the organizational objectives. We need to consider what the current culture is within the organization. What is the organization embracing in terms of wellness at the moment? Do you have a very disgruntled employee base? And then you're going to ask them to come work out at lunch.
What's your vision for the impact that a concierge can have on affecting a healthier culture? And how would you go about doing that? Or how have you done so in your role as a concierge?
early on, we used to come in and we used to just plan based on, oh, here's what we need. And kind of like going to your expression that you always said, like wellness programming is more than CrossFit and Kale, right? So of course there's super important components, but such a broad offerings that you can do in terms of food and nutrition, as well as fitness and, working the body. And there's just so many more, areas to focus on when it comes to wellness, right? But if we think about a healthy culture, over the years, I started to realize that there was a lot more to just bringing in these programs, right? That would be successful for them to be successful in the long term. So when we think about culture, we're thinking about what's going on in the company. For example, is there a cafeteria and what are they offering? Does the upper management and the CEO believe in wellness? Like, what are their thoughts about it, and how can we, if, they're not pro, or they are a bit confused about it, or not active in terms of their own, wellness, then how are we going to, transfer that to the employee body? Are we expecting them to answer emails at all hours of the day? And so it's very broad, right?
Do you do anything specifically to build relationships with the managers? Because we often say in this field, the middle managers are the ones that are really hard to connect with and to really get them on your side in terms of championing wellness, to their teams and what have you. So do you find, or have you found ways that yourself as a wellness concierge can forge those relationships so that you get more buy-in and start really making inroads to creating a healthy work culture?
I do, actually. So I'm a little bit of a bug, right? So if I'm going to come in and you want me to affect some change and you want your employees to be happy, healthier, more engaged, less absent, all that stuff, then yeah, those are the people we need to hit. Because if they don't let you go down to your yoga class, or they're not pro on it and they want you to finish up those emails during your lunch, it's not going to work. So yes, I'll invite initially for them to come, and I'll talk to them about what wellness is, and initially before we go global with the rest of the company. And of course, it's optional. They don't have to come. So then I find out who are the ones that didn't come. Why didn't they come? But if we have enough buy-in right at the onset, then I explain to them, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how we can do it. And how does it work within the framework of the way you guys organize your day? And then what I opt to do, and I like to do if it's possible, is meet with each of them individually. It could be for one session, it could be for 4 to 6 weeks, it could be for 12 weeks, but just to really work with them one-on-one, especially the less that the culture of wellness exists within the organization, the more important that is, so that they can learn, what is this? Oh, wow. You know what? I really do feel great.
So thank you, Christina. That wonderful examples. Ruvi, how about yourself? How do you build relationships with managers? What impacts have that had to you as a service provider, but also to the organization themselves?
Well, really great points there. And I'm really, since my focus is largely on stress, and of course, stats showing that CEOs and managers are really stressed and burnt out, especially over these last 2 years. I really come in with an empathetic approach, really come and because sometimes I think all the fingers are pointed to the, to the leaders, the managers should do this and this and this, but it has been challenging overall. So I come in trying to understand what are some of the challenges that they've been facing. And especially, when we talk about culture, let's look at turnover, what is, and if the turnover is high, which it is for a lot of companies, let's take a look at, what are the reasons for that? Not what are you doing wrong to cause the turnover, but what, in your opinion, is causing the turnover, and how could we support? How can we help you? And I found coming from that approach has opened doors, and plus even offering suggestions of how we can support in that area. Because it's one thing to bring in and actually, in fact, if there's a lot of challenges as far as turnover and internal, just basic cultural challenges, such as, not even having time to take a break, or not taking vacations and things like that, maybe an expanded wellness program is not necessarily the starting point. Maybe let's take a look at, maybe some managerial executive leadership coaching first, and then
Right. Yeah.
let's start in phases and
Yeah.
try to fix the foundation first
Yeah.
before we build the house.
Yeah. And let's just say it is some type of leadership training that they need to start with, and that's outside your wheelhouse potentially, right? As an example, then again, that's an area that you could broker. And I'm really well connected as an executive coach with other executive coaches that do a lot of leadership work. So that's another opportunity to really, and they will respect that if you bring in someone and then they say, yeah, now we're ready to come in and look at your stress mastery services, for example, right? And so Ruvi, and I'll go back to Christina. What types of organizations? I know like you've worked with lawyers and legal teams and groups. So can you just give us a little perspective? You spoke to a hotel resort. What are some other types of organizations, and what size of the organizations have you worked with thus far?
I've worked really a range from 10 to 250, as I found that that's been my range, and it's varied from consulting to law firms. And then of course a hotel. I also did do a little bit of work with an IT company for a few months. And there was this time I did work with an HVAC company, which was really great. Actually, it was nice to. It was during their off season, and I think what we're going to see from from now and beyond is companies in various industries, even some that had never focused on wellness, really looking at ways. And with this particular contract, it was very unique to myself because I had never worked with that industry before.
Nice.
Well, what we ended up doing was more so one-on-one coaching. It was during their off season, so they had more time. And that's one of the benefits too of working with the wellness concierge, because we can definitely modify accordingly as well to the company's needs. So.
And even a large organization that may have an in-house wellness committee or coordinator or team, they may still look to someone like yourself or Christina or our other workplace wellness concierges to bring them in to add other dimensions, because we always want to be creating and offering multi-dimensional holistic offerings, right? And so again, it's, you offer a very affordable just in time. And I say just in time because you told me last week that a company approached you last minute to deliver a stress mastery workshop within a whole week of a retreat. I thought that was a really interesting opportunity there. And, of course, there's a little bit of a price charge that will go with that, right? An upcharge because it was a last minute request, right? But again, that is... shows again the flexibility of the offerings and how you can really meet just in time, literally just in time services, right? And thank you for that, Ruvi. And Christina, the composition of the types of organizations you've worked with, from the nature, the industry, and the size of their organizations. What can you say to that?
So typically I've worked with mostly organizations that are somewhere between 100 and I'd say 500 or 600 employees. So over the years, that's really been, roughly the size. Although I have been working with a much larger organization for the last few years, or 3-4 years now, I guess, in the healthcare industry, and it's like 10,000 plus employees. And my role in that organization is kind of what you just spoke to, is they already have, a wellness committee. They, that's quite organized. And I came in and really met with a specific area within their program needs. But yeah, mostly between 105, 600 and all kinds of organizations. I've worked a lot in the financial industry, a lot in the fashion industry. So finance and financial, but also, I worked for the Montreal Cemetery for a little while. I worked with, what we're coming in to do is not specific to a certain industry, but it's really more, again, it's really more about the culture, right? And what are we coming in to do, and what are the needs right now? And kind of like what Ruvi was speaking to, people, all kinds of different companies now are calling, and tech industries, the pharmaceutical, which always been there, but other industries that really didn't look too much to wellness are going, oh boy, we need to do something.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And Ruvi, for your answers just then, because everything I came up with, in all the interviews, over 50 interviews for the book and our research, and still to this day, things I'm reading, say, particularly on LinkedIn, is that to remain competitive in this race for talent, or as Bree Groff put it in one of the profiles, like talent is yours to lose, and we can lose it by not positioning ourselves competitively to organization. What would you say to that? I'll and what would you say to organizations who are thinking, oh, I really don't think we can afford to bring in some. We recognize the benefit. We recognize that other organizations down the road, competing with us, if you will, offer this. What would you say to them who are on the fence about workplace wellness?
Kind of like what you said earlier, just in time and affordable. A wellness program can cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and tens of thousands and even 100,000 plus, but it also can be quite, cost effective. So by bringing in somebody like, myself or a Ruvi or a concierge, we'll sit down with you and, kind of in that needs assessment, what are your needs and what's your budget, right? Like, what can you do? And once we lay out a plan, for sure, we can come in and, Ruvi flew out to Belize and, I've done similar projects, and we can certainly do the A to Z, and you don't even have to think about us. Like, once we establish the contract, we're like off and running. We just need the ability to communicate with the staff. And
it really is an investment. When we use the word investment in our proposals, it really is an investment in your employees, in the growth of your organization, in the success of your organization, the sustainability of your organization.
Exactly.
On so many levels, right? And Ruvi, again, maybe you have had organizations who might say, oh, well, I'm just not sure if we got the budget or the time. I don't know if our employees can commit the time. What would you say to that? Or have you said?
Actually, one of my favorite things to hear, and to then show that anything is possible, especially understanding what the budget is. And so, for example, if they already have programs in place, let's say, and we've done a needs assessment, and we find that perhaps there's a program that has low engagement, the budget that's going towards there perhaps could be better utilized. So that's one way. But also, as Christina mentioned, finding out after you do the assessments, you could even take it in phases. In fact, I actually like the phased approach because, sometimes it's overwhelming for all parties to, to do a full rollout of a 2-year program all at once. So perhaps budgeting, a phased approach. Also, having discussions during the budgets time, which is usually for a lot of companies around the end of the year, so that they can actually forecast, for the next year, which is not always possible. But, for some companies, that's a great time to then look. And actually, I would even recommend companies to start really having those discussions of, we need a line item for wellness, just in general.
We need a line item for wellness. Oh my gracious, I love it. I have to run with that. And I actually challenged a client organization one time. I had them look up their strategic plan, and I said, is there reference in your top 5 goals to wellness or culture or employee well-being or organization well-being? And this was a company that prided themselves on wellness, and yet there was no indication or representation of any of that in their top 5 objectives. And the person I spoke to was rather embarrassed, because this person was quite a wellness advocate. So you just never know, right? And so we always have to go in and really illuminate that and stress the importance of it to those we're working with or proposing to, right? So let's, in wrapping up,
Lisa, just add something into that, because I really feel that that's a huge area. Budget is always a very big area, especially now, as we're, sort of post-COVID, or, in the hybrid worlds, is that, we can, the Ruvis and myself and you roll out the programs, but we can also help you internally, right? So like a walking group can be, organized. There's so many things that are free, wellness, and don't have to cost any money.
So just at my last question then, and I'm loving everything. I could go on for another hour, but we don't have the time, and I'm sure we'll overextend our welcome with our listeners. Can you think of, I'll go to Christina and then Ruvi, 1 or 2 examples of real true success stories or experiences that really stand out in your experience over the years as a workplace wellness concierge?
So one thing that really stood out to me was actually just before COVID, I did a first giant launch, a big launch of a program, or launch of a program that was a challenge, a 6-week challenge within a healthcare organization. And it was super fun. It was super engaging. In fact, it was in the companies and the organizations, words, the most effective wellness offering that they had ever offered in 50 plus years of existence. So that was pretty amazing.
What do you think was the key to that being that success factor in that experience?
I think it just was light, and it was fun, and it was dynamic, and it was well communicated. It was pretty well communicated within the organization, which is, and I just think it was different. And the employees got to do something fun and light, and there were prizes, and I think that it was an organization that had a pay freeze for a long time.
Okay.
The employees were really, working a lot, and they were just like, wow, this is so great that they're doing something that meets the things that we want in terms of our wellness. And so,
Yeah. Thank you. And Ruvi, what about yourself? What comes to mind as a success story?
Well, definitely when I was working with Hamanasi Resort, the company in Belize, and this actually was a success story really because the leadership or the general manager, the directors are such amazing leaders. But what we ended up doing was one of the employees had been experiencing a lot of health issues that were not being resolved, for a number of reasons there. So we were able to actually fly her to the US, and I was able to find some doctors and whatnot that were able to see her and, give her some support and help.
What really amazed me, that was so heartwarming, that after you finished up that contract, they started, taking the ball and running with it, no pun intended again, right? And they would start organizing their own little wellness initiatives and start going to the gym and looking for gym offerings for their employees. So they really coalesced and really started taking your lead and continuing with what you had started, right? So that's incredible. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful. As I said, I could probably speak to you both for another hour, and probably will, but not today. We'll have you back maybe at another point. So that concludes another episode of our Cultivating Healthy and Vibrant Workplaces. And we hope you've enjoyed our discussion today, perhaps inspired to become a workplace wellness specialist or a workplace wellness concierge, or maybe a workplace wellness champion for your organization. And so to learn more about our special guest today and workplace wellness career opportunities, do check out our book and the profiles of each of these wonderful gals in our book. And also go to the last section on workplace wellness career opportunities, because we profile it and profile several case studies of our graduates, so you can learn more about the successes they've experienced. So Ruvi and Christina, how can an organization or maybe another wellness professional interested in connecting with you get in touch with you? Christina?
Well, I guess you can go to my website, which is www.peaksante.com. Also, you can call me 514-572-7600. Send me an email at Christina@peaksante.
And you're on LinkedIn as well, right?
And I'm on LinkedIn. Exactly. It's so easy to really get.
We'll link up some of those links in the show notes. And Ruvi, how about yourself? How's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably to make it easier for people to hear, and the links will all be below. But I think on LinkedIn, Ruvi Makuni is a great place to
okay. And do you have a website or that you people can go to as well?
Yes, www.fitactivetone.com.
Fitactivetone.com. Perfect. Okay. And as I said, I'll link everything up in the show notes that you provide me. So thanks, Ruvi and Christina, for being our guest today. Congratulations on all your achievements and continued success with your future endeavors. And again, to learn more about our courses and certification programs, please do visit our website at workplacewellnesscoe.com. Maybe sign up for an information session that's coming up, or certainly contact us at info@workplacewellnesscoe.com to set up a discovery consult to talk about maybe opportunities as a workplace wellness concierge or our programs or whatever you would like to discuss in this field. So till we meet up again, my friends, stay healthy, happy, and as I like to say, keep on keeping it real. Bye for now.